All right, welcome to episode 6 of our webinar series, Bridging the Gap, Indigenous-Led Clean Transportation for Saskatchewan's North. This is brought to you by Aurora Renewables and English River First Nation in partnership with Natural Resources Canada. I'm Mitch Carlson, and once again, I'll be your host for today's session. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that many of us are joining from the ancestral lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Nakota, Dakota Lakota, and Dene people, as well as the homeland of the Métis in Saskatchewan. If you are new to this series, joining us for the first time and missed our first few episodes or would like to rewatch, you can find the recordings on Aurora's YouTube channel. That's just here on the link on the screen at Bridging the Gap EV. In the past episodes, we've met with a whole bunch of different industry experts who have shared valuable resources and information about all things EV, including hearing from Saskatchewan EV owners, but we've yet to really get into charging infrastructure that support the vehicles. So today, that is our plan, and we're going to be talking all about charging, and specifically with three proudly Canadian EV charging brands. So I'm joined today by Micah Gold Micah Gold Udding, head of sales of Fractal based in Waterloo, Ontario, and Grant Dundas, the director of sales at TLEV based right here in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Hi, guys.
Hey, Mitch. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Mitch.
All right. Well, Aurora Renewables will be installing chargers from each of these brands into English River First Nation properties later this summer. So we're excited to get those to help support the freedom of electrified travel within and between communities. And I'll also be sharing some information from Grizzly by United Chargers for those who are looking for a solid residential charging option in Saskatchewan. So another proudly Canadian company. But before we get into that, let's just start things off with each of you. Tell us a little bit about yourselves and your respective organizations, including some of the Canadian content that your businesses and products have. So, Micah, I'll start with you. I'll let you take over the screen here.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mitch. So yeah, I can share my screen here briefly, but as Mitch introduced, I'm Micah Goldunning. I'm the head of sales here at Fractal EV. Fractal EV is a Canadian-based level 2 OEM. So we only make commercial level 2 AC chargers. And I think throughout this webinar, we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. But we're a little unique in the EV industry because most people there's a lot of focus right now on the DC side, and there's very few people who are specializing on AC chargers. And the ones who do have AC products often do so within like a broader product line. So we're one of the few vendors in North America who's really focused just on the level 2 space. We come from a founding group of people who have been in the EV industry for a very long time. So Chris Mendez founded the company, who previously ran a company called Fleet Karma, who was very involved in the EV space in Canada from the very start. That company started in 2008. And since we've been around for about 3 years now and grown to support a lot of different fleet and public operations. So we work with organizations across all the different spectrums of commercial charging. So that includes multifamily projects. It includes utilities. We're working with utilities across Canada and the US. And then we are also working with a lot of fleet operations. So people like Bell Canada are using our chargers to power the electrification of their fleet. Unlike most vendors, a lot of chargers that you'll see, especially the lower cost kind of commoditized chargers, are coming in from Asia right now. We are based in Waterloo, and we actually make all of our chargers here in Waterloo, Ontario. So all of the engineering design has occurred here, and all of the design of the products, the firmware, software, all of that happens here as well. So then we have our facility that I'm actually presenting out of right now, where we warehouse and build the chargers, and really are focused on how do we make a true kind of like Canadian leader in EV charging and make sure that we have expertise in EV charging here at home in Canada. So that's really who we are at Fractal. And yeah, back to you, Mitch.
Hey, perfect. Yeah, thanks very much. I'll pass this right on to Grant here, and we'll hear a little bit about Teal.
Sure. Mhm. Perfect. I'm Grant Dundas. I'm the Director of Sales at Teal. Hoping you guys can see my screen.
Yep.
Yep. Perfect. Yeah, Teal, I guess Mitch mentioned there, we're located in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, where we were founded in 2018. We focus primarily on level three charging solutions. That's your DCFC, your phase three chargers. And yeah, we've got a great team in-house of engineers who have developed right from scratch and vertically integrated the hardware, software, and firmware. We really focus on righting the wrongs, I guess, of the early days of DC fast chargers that came into to Canada and into North America. We try to focus primarily on the reliability of them and the affordability of them. As we know, the early days of chargers were very expensive and unfortunately not really built for our climate. Which leads to the one of our best-selling features in our Canadian uh, design chargers are great from -50 up to +50. So real focus on the harsh winter conditions and the summer. And happy to share with you that we have chargers that have successfully survived and had no issues at the Port of Houston, where it's very hot and humid, all the way up to the Winnipeg Airport, where we know those winters can be in the -50s, -52, -53. So happy to share that with you. The types of chargers that we offer by application are public facing. Those are the ones that have the credit card terminals and can be used by anyone along a route to charge up quickly. We create fleet chargers as well that come with pedestals or can be wall mounted to keep a fleet of electric vehicles at a company going. And then we also offer a depot application, which can be wall mounted or placed overhead for charging transit buses or vehicles of that type. We focus on or our lineup currently offers 30 to up to 480 kilowatts. And as Mitch, as you mentioned, um, we fall right in there with a future-proof charger that we are going to be installing for you at 80 kilowatts. That can be in the future upgraded as the application needs permit. And that's Teal.
All right. Great, thanks very much. So you've each thrown out a couple different terms, and I want to make sure the audience is kind of aware of, I guess, the difference between level one, level two, DC, AC, megawatt chargers. Who wants to take a stab at maybe, or both of you can, at explaining, I guess, each of those terms and maybe just giving people an understanding of the differences between chargers and kind of the applications of what they should be looking at.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to jump in on that, Mitch. So, when we look at charging, there's a whole bunch of different ways that people can charge, right? So, the most basic way is with a level one charger. This is a very slow charge, right? Typically, you're looking at somewhere around like 1 kilowatt. And this is just plugging into a normal 120-volt outlet like you would have at your home. But it allows people to charge in a convenient way, right? Wherever you have energy, you're able to charge your vehicle. And but it's quite slow. So it takes a long time for a vehicle to fill up. So it's really appropriate for places where either you're not going to be traveling very far, so you don't have to get a lot of charge, or you're going to be parking the vehicle for a long time. So people who are in kind of residential applications who know they're not going to drive their vehicle very much can be a really low cost and kind of like low complexity way to be able to get the charge that they need into fuel without a lot of complexity. And then in more commercial applications, we see it being used in places like airports where you're going to be parking the car for a long period of time. You don't want to have a lot of infrastructure added, but you want to be able to fuel up those vehicles so that someone can make maybe a long trek to the airport, leave the vehicle there for a while, charge it, and then have it there when they come back.
Okay.
That's level one
So
charge.
So level ones, you say slow and around 1 kilowatt kind of per hour. Is that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So just to try and, I guess, put that into context, like I think my I've got a Kia Niro. It's got a 65 kilowatt hour battery. So if it was from zero and trying to go to full, it'd be 65 hours, hey, to
Yep.
fill that. But like you said, not everyone is traveling long distances every day or charging every day, necessarily. So it can work, right? Like lots of people still use that, right?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people over provision, and we can talk about this later on, but people over provision their charging infrastructure. But if you're only driving, a couple kilometers a day, 20, 30 kilometers a day, there's no reason that you need anything more than a level one charge. And even if every now and then you're going to, spike up to 80 or 100 kilometers, you don't have to sit at 100% charge all the time, right? You want to be able to use that full range of your battery. And, if it takes a couple days to get back up to full, that's fine.
Yeah.
But
And obviously you would need a special cable though to connect to your vehicle. Does that come with the vehicle or where do you get that adapter, I guess?
Yeah, so a lot of vehicles will come with a level one charger. Actually, I would say most vehicles come with a one charger in their trunk. Lots of times these are kind of provisioned as emergency chargers. They're actually not meant for like continuous long-term use. One thing that we can talk about also is safety standards, and it's something to really be considerate of in that like even at 1 kilowatt, that's a lot of power draw on a standard outlet, and a lot of our circuitry, especially older circuitry, isn't meant to be kind of maxed out for that time period. So we do want to be cautious when we're using a level one and make sure that we're using equipment that's like intended for it on a dedicated circuit. You're not running it on the same. It's not in your garage, and you also have like a beer fridge or something in there, and you're really like stressing out your circuitry. But yeah, most vehicles are just going to come with that. So most people have one of those on hand.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
But yeah, especially like when we move beyond that, and especially in Canada where we do have, longer distances to travel, most people are going to look to have a level two charger for charging. So level two chargers are still AC charging. So you're still going to be kind of attaching to normal electrical infrastructure. And these can provide anywhere from, you can get 32 amp chargers all the way up to 80 amp chargers. So you're looking at, a range of somewhere around 6 kilowatts up to like 19.2 kilowatts, depending on some of the infrastructure. So that, to your point earlier about your Nero, right, with it probably supports, depending on when it was, probably supports like a 48 amp charge, which means that you
Yeah.
can get like 11 kilowatts on that. So you can fill up that thing in a couple hours.
Right.
So for most people and most applications, a level two charger is going to give you exactly what you need in terms of you're going to park your vehicle overnight, and no matter how far you've driven through the day, you're going to be able to go from 0 to 100 over that kind of normal parking period.
Right. Yeah, I always like to tell this story, like our charger that it came with our house that when we bought a newer home, came with it. It's actually I feel like it's a unique thing is it's actually on a shared circuit with our oven. So when the oven's on, we can't charge, so there's like a transfer switch, but we always charge overnight, so there's never really a conflict. But I guess the interesting part of it is that people think that they always need to have a upgraded panel or puts, a bunch of expense into that. And that's, not always the case. In some cases it may be, but we only have a 100 amp service panel for our whole home, and we're able to do a level three charger and have no problems with it. So just another kind of thing to consider that there's options around that to not have to upgrade, but always good to make sure that I guess like you said that the circuitry can support it in the right way.
For sure. And I think, again, it goes back to the place of people over provisioning. I think when you're first electrifying, there's a tendency to just want to make sure that you have as much energy as possible. And the reality is that most people just don't need that, right? So, like, I originally had a vehicle with like a 45 kilowatt hour battery. I recently got an Equinox with an 88 kilowatt hour battery. But even with my driving patterns, I have an older home, 100-year plus old home. So the energy is constrained there. And I run my level two charger at 20 amps. So a little
Okay.
bit more than what you get out of a level one. But overnight, there's no problem with me getting a full charge. And sometimes when I plug it in, it says, oh, to get to 80%, it's going to need until 11 a.m. the next day. But the reality is that I'm not often doing back-to-back trips. So it like long trips, so it ends up being totally fine. And when you do need that top up, that's when you get into level three charging. So level three charging is DC charging. So this is what people would typically refer to as fast charging. And Grant can speak probably more to this because this is what his company makes, but there's a whole range of different power. And this is generally the stuff that gets most of the press because this is the kind of chargers that more closely emulate what people are used to from fueling, right? Because with level two and level one charging, really what we're looking at is how do we fuel while we park so that you're not taking a different activity for your fueling. And it's one of the big advantages of the EV chargers is that you actually stop having fueling be a distinct activity. But sometimes it still occurs and you do need to top up. And in that case, that's where you would have a level 3 charger, which allows you to push a lot of energy into a vehicle very quickly and fully charge a vehicle along a highway corridor or something like that, in something like, ranging from an hour all the way down to, let's say, 10 minutes on the fast chargers. So maybe Grant, I'll pass it over to you if you want to talk a little bit more about the ranges and different options in DC charging.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the level 3 charging starts at about 100 amps. You can from there you can scale all the way up to 480, and then as the vehicles that are coming onto the market, as the battery architecture changes, obviously we're trying to accommodate and be able to charge those vehicles faster or give them the power that they need quickly. So we have chargers that are 480 kilowatts plus, and yeah, like level 3 charger, as you mentioned, Micah, is it's an opportunity charge when it's non-negotiable and you need a quick juice up. Find them along the highway commonly in fleets when you're running a 24-hour operation. It's nice to have those handy as well. In the lower, like the 100 amp, we even have some sequential charging solutions where two vehicles can be plugged in kind of overnight or during a handoff between shifts too on the fleet side. It is basically when you need to put a lot of electrons into the vehicle to keep it going is when you would lean to DC fast charging. And then I guess quickly just to touch on megawatt charging, it's a new technology that's coming out you'll see with the Class 8 semi truck like the Teslas, and the megawatt meaning 1,000 kilowatts. It's high powered charging that uses an MCS format. It's really the future of transportation and electric semis being on the road.
Right. What about the new thing I'm hearing about with the like flash charging 5 minute stuff that's might be coming in from China? Is that on the radar here yet in Canada or North America?
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's always talk and there's always movement and innovation in our space. Everything we try to do, we're conscious of future proofing so that we can accommodate that. The application for it, I mean, it has to kind of match the vehicle architecture. You have to have vehicles. You're not going to pull up your
Yeah,
smaller car to
my
it,
Nero
right?
can't work with
Right,
that. I know.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, it's an interesting concept for sure. But yeah, the time will tell. We always say that we try and build our chargers to last a decade. I've assumed in a decade that something latest and greatest would replace them, not actually they wouldn't actually fall apart or need to be replaced. But I think innovation, just the pace that everything's moving at is what's pushing
right,
the speeds. So
right.
I think the other thing that I might add on to that is that it goes back to the earlier point about matching the charging infrastructure to the electrical infrastructure and then also the duty cycles of the vehicles. And there's this tendency to want to over provision. It's very exciting to be like, oh, we can charge in 5 minutes. But if you're going to be parked there anyways for 5 hours, what you're actually doing is putting a ton of grid strain on to be able to provide that kind of electrical architecture, which may not be required, right? So when we look at level 2 charging, a lot more common is like how do we squeeze out as many ports and as much access to charging with the available infrastructure through things like power sharing, as opposed to how do we get people filled as quickly as possible. So it's about the right charger for the right application.
Right. And I guess that we should talk about the vehicles too. Different vehicles can accept different levels of charging, right? As far as I know, and older ones are kind of max out at a certain, so like going to my Kia Niro, it's a 2023, and I believe, I'm not sure, but I think it can only really accept 80 kilowatts as a max. You guys have any kind of info on that? A little bit of, where things are moving to on the vehicle architecture?
Yeah, so for AC charging, you are actually using an onboard charger within the vehicle. So there's a device within the vehicle that's going to accept the AC power and convert that to DC power into the battery. And that has to be spec'd for the correct, like that's spec for different power amounts. So you can get 32 amp onboard chargers, 40, 48 amps. So that will often constrain how much energy you can get on a level 2 charger. And then, Grant, I'll let you take the DC side.
Yeah, and then on the DC side, what we're doing is we're bypassing that here. We're converting the AC power, three-phase power into DC and setting it directly to the battery. In terms of vehicles, I think there's a couple like the Ionic 9 that can actually do close to 300, except there's some more European that you see that haven't quite hit Canadian shores yet that or been manufactured here that can, but there are some. The battery architecture is changing to be able to accept those types of speeds and yeah, much like Micah says, having the right amount of power doesn't always depend on availability. It depends on more or less the application and can we do more with the available power? You may be looking at a level 3 charging project and find out that no, this is far better suited to a level 2 scenario. So always a very consultative approach to when we're dealing with clients to determine what their charging goals are versus the available utility and at their site, right? So it's complex. It's more complex than just picking a charger off the shelf because you like it and you think it's going to be the fastest and the best, right?
Right. Okay, great. Well, we do have a couple questions coming in here, and I just want to remind the audience that to feel free to drop any questions into the chat box, and we'll get to them here. Before we address the couple that we've got here, I just want to touch base here again. I said that we'd talk a little bit about United Chargers and the Grizzly family. So unfortunately, we had a scheduling conflict with our Grizzly representative, so we have to hear this secondhand from me. But I thought it would be important to share a little bit about kind of the residential side as well. So this is another Canadian charging brand. They were established in 2019. They design, develop, and manufacture EV supply equipment in Richmond Hill, Ontario. They become a highly popular choice for residential chargers and are now expanding into the commercial market as well. One of the reasons that we're featuring them is that we've received several feedback from several Saskatchewan residents who have used the Grizzly charger, and they rave about the ruggedness and the reliability of the chargers, even in the cold weather. And there is a bonus that comes with Grizzly, and a few others now are offering this. But I believe they were the first charging company to offer cashback rewards for charging, and now they will even offer free chargers as part of their program. So if you're looking for a free charger and to get paid by charging, you might want to look into these and some of the other companies that are out there that are offering this. And the way this works is the Grizzly Club program leverages Canada's clean fuel regulations, under which fuel suppliers that cannot reduce their emissions must buy carbon credits from clean solutions providers like EV charging. And so by joining the Grizzly Club, you share in the value of those credits. So your charger becomes an income generating asset with no monthly fees and during the membership period, and it's backed by a lifetime warranty and dedicated support for your connected charger. So if you're interested in more information on not only getting a free charger for your home, except for the installation costs, as well as getting cash back every time you charge, take a look into Grizzly and some of the others that are out there. So at grizzle.com/ca. And I believe with theirs, it starts at their offering starts at 3 kilowatts or 3 cents per kilowatt hour. Charging is what you get in cash back, and then it escalates from there. So pretty cool stuff from them as well. Okay, we do have some questions here. We've got a couple from Henning Mortensen, and I think this was a good one for you, Micah. Do you allow charge sharing? And if so, between how many chargers, i.e., sharing one breaker between how many chargers? And just a follow-up to that, maybe some additional context. He lives in a condo, and they've got limited to how many circuits that they have in use and on that power sharing. So currently looking at some chargers, just wondering what options you have available for that and how that would work.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to chat about that. And it kind of ties back to what I was talking about earlier in terms of giving as many accessible ports as possible, where that's often ends up being the constraint rather than the total power available. With our chargers, we actually do support power sharing. There's a lot of different approaches for power sharing that we can talk about. So a lot of organizations will use a cloud-based approach where you connect the chargers to a software, and then that software is going to remotely calculate available power and allow you to do the piece that this question is asking about in terms of putting more chargers on a circuit. And maybe it's worth like highlighting what that means for people, and that what that essentially is saying is that if you have a let's say 50 amp circuit breaker, normally you would be able to put a 40 amp charger on that and provide one person with 40 amps worth of charging at all times, which when we look at, the amount of power that people actually need is normally going to be more power than someone is actually going to consume on a consistent basis. But what ends up happening is in a condo example, if that's all the power that you have, or maybe you have 6 of these circuits available, you have one panel, let's say. Once you fill it up, then only 6 people get to charge. And it's like, without a power sharing solution, the first 6 people who sign up and get their EV chargers installed, those are the guys who get EVs. And after that, nobody else can charge at home. So power sharing fixes this, where it says instead what we're going to do is we're going to connect 2 or 4 or more chargers on each of those circuits. And then what we're going to do is limit that group of chargers to that maximum amount. So if you have multiple people plug in at the same time, it's going to reduce the power that each of them gets so that it continues to operate safely and isn't going to flip the breaker. So we actually do that within the firmware of our chargers. We have a really nice mesh solution where the chargers can talk to each other on site. So it happens locally. There's no cloud dependency for it, which increases the reliability and safety of the system. And it allows you to do exactly that. So, and the nice thing with that is that even if someone has higher demands, someone does need more charging, what ends up happening is that, 2 people plug in, they both start by getting, say, 20 amps in the above for the previous example. And one of them has only driven a little bit that day. So they eventually fill up, and maybe by midnight, their vehicle is full. And then at that point, the other person gets the full 40 amps again. So you're always maximizing the amount of power that you have available. And it allows people to get the power that they need in these condo examples.
All right. Okay. So it sounds like Henning should be reaching out to you for chargers. Yeah, is that
We
right?
certainly have a solution that can address that.
Okay, sounds good. So Henning, take note and reach out to
Mm.
Fractal. Grant, what about sharing on level threes? Is there opportunities where you have multiple ports, and I guess how much sharing from one single charging post or pedestal or whatever?
Yeah. So like our larger chargers, like at 60 kilowatts, starting at 60 kilowatts, can actually power share dynamically. So if there's a vehicle that's pulls up first and they plug in and they're charging, the total capacity would be split based on what each vehicle can take. So it dynamically shares between the 2 vehicles. And with our 240 kilowatt charger, we can actually pair those with a DC bus underground to create a 4-port sharing 480 kilowatts. So you could connect 4 cars simultaneously. And that's currently the closest thing that we manufacture to a distributed system. Everything we build is integrated. So, but yeah, the power sharing is capable from 60 kilowatts and onward.
Okay, sounds good. Maybe tell us a little bit more about where your organizations are focused and going, and if there's certain markets, like you kind of complement each other, it sounds like one, AC side of things versus DC. What are the kind of the markets that you're seeing and that you're getting into and the type of applications? I know that might be broad, but maybe give us a little sense of who's buying your products.
Yeah, we can chat about that. I think to your point, right? We do a lot of work with Teal as a complementary solution. So we see a lot of that. I think one of the pieces that plays into that is this differentiation between residential and commercial use cases. So you highlighted someone like Grizzly, who provides a really high quality residential solution. And at Fractal, we're really focused on the commercial space. So one of the importance there is that there's this distinction between residential and commercial applications, which can be a little bit hard to kind of conceptualize when you're first looking at electrification. But the difference really comes down to a question around reliability and a question around data. So in commercial use cases, there's often a billing element that needs to occur on the chargers. And what that does is it puts a lot of pressure on the charging system to be able to do a lot of complex actions really quickly, because you need to be able to have essentially a payment action occur, and sometimes this power management action occur, and a user authentication action occur, and all of those have to happen in a very tight window so that you can make sure that the charger starts to dispense energy consistently for the user. In a residential use case, your tolerances are much higher because you don't have this requirement to do user identification. You don't have an internet dependency in the loop. We don't have to do billing. And if it doesn't charge right away or it doesn't charge at all that night, people are probably going to be okay. You just charge the next day. Whereas if you're like a last mile delivery van or something and you wake up and the vehicle's not charged, or a bus or something like that, it's a big problem. So the reason I bring that up is because that's a precursor to where Fractal and I think Teal as well are really focused, are applications where charging is critical. So whenever people have high reliability requirements, whether that's, for us, it's bus fleets, it's last mile delivery fleets, it's other kinds of like commercial applications for people who are operating high requirement fleets. Then it's multifamily, because one of the things about multifamily use cases is that they kind of take the residential and push it into a commercial application, because typically there's a requirement to bill out for the energy. And by pulling the billing into the authentication of the chargers, where essentially you need to know who it is charging, right? There's a user identification element. You suddenly put a lot of requirements on the system that can break down and cause complications for lower complexity, lower resiliency residential chargers. And then the last one for us is workplace, where people are, and amenity charging, where people are deploying chargers as kind of a benefit to either guests, if it's like a hotel, or for employees or something like that, but they still want to capture data, carbon credits, this kind of thing off the devices, and they want to be able to monitor them. So anytime that you have that kind of like high requirements use cases, that's where Fractal is really dedicated, because our solution is really built around resiliency.
Great, thanks. Grant?
Yeah, I echo that as well. We're really focused on the commercial side, and I guess in terms of where our business is headed, we were really dominated early on by the behind the fence type fleet application, where we're installing chargers either on the wall or in behind a facility to keep a fleet of vehicles running. Our business really focused on that. Most of those required an activation by RFID so that we could track the type of vehicles that were being used, the type of fleet, drivers, how much power consumption they were looking, was all capable of doing that through our software. And now we've seen a pivot, and right now more, I would say almost a 60-40 split, or we're starting to be dominated more by the public facing credit card payment app type public charging along a corridor or route, public facing application right now. So we're doing a lot more of those charges, it seems. They're popular in ride sharing parking lots and along highway routes and with utility companies. So that's what our focus is in 2026 is on those and delivering quality products to our clients.
Okay. Great, thank you. Another question in here. You guys are getting some inquiries here about how they can essentially join the team in one way or another. So you've obviously got people convinced here. So one question here is just wondering, is there any opportunity to get involved with sales or sales commissions and things like that for selling those products? So how might they go about contacting you guys to get involved if they're wanting to bring specifically for commercial businesses that might be looking at level 3? So maybe Grant, that's on your end.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of distribution partnerships across Canada and the United States right now, where we work with people who might have a better relationship with an organization, or they're a project manager and they're looking to assist an organization with level 3 charging. yeah, we work with all types of customers. And again, like I said, reach out. We're happy to discuss opportunities all the time with how we can best service it. And we're also looking for service partners too, right? Like the after sales services as a manufacturer, we provide technical service for the lifetime of all of our products. However, if there's a service and maintenance plan that is available on a particular charger based on its location or its application, we're always looking to define those with service partners who might be local or close by where they can help maintain the charger and service it if needed. So yeah, please reach out.
Great. Okay, we're getting pretty close to the end here. I don't see any more questions coming in. Just wanted to see if you guys have any more closing comments before I wrap it up and talk about the next session here.
Yeah, I think if you're considering EV charging, and I think for a lot of people, there's a lot of nuances to it as we've kind of discussed today. Available power, if it's a new site, if it's an existing site, and we're going to bolt over something, reach out and have the conversation. We've got a lot of tools and experience, and we'd always like to say that no two charging applications are alike, and that's probably true. The projects do vary, so yeah, we look forward to inquiries all the time to sit with people and discuss what the ultimate goal is. And if the ultimate goal is charging a fleet of vehicles, what does that look like in the years to come? 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, does that fleet grow? What are the power requirements on the public side? Are you looking for a return of investment? How rapid are you? How busy is your location? What's the exposure to traffic? And we have some tools and resources that can assist with that. So yeah, my advice is please just reach out and let's have a discussion. Uh, we've got a lot of good partners, Fractal, a lot of good installers, electricians, design engineers that we work with, and like I said, we're just happy to help.
Yeah, I think I would echo that, and I think like one thing that we appreciate with partnering with Teal, and certainly something that we how we operate, is that we make sure that people get partnered with the right solutions for their applications. Like EV charging does not need to be complicated, but there's a lot of decisions to make when starting a project, and it's very easy to make early mistakes that can be quite painful downstream, and then also get overwhelmed by the number of decisions that have to be made. So both us and Teal partner with a whole range of consultants and engineers and electrical contractors. And I think like when people reach out to us, often more that we do rather than just like trying to sell our own products is just pairing people with the right partners to help them understand the requirements for their applications. And then, ultimately, if our products end up being a right fit, that's always a benefit. But I think, we're very much of the opinion that the goal here is to support electrification in Canada more generally. And if we can get people paired with the right partners, then we're going to have successful projects, and that's going to just be beneficial for everyone.
And I assume, like, just judging from both of you, there's a lot of collaboration required and a lot of people in the ecosystem than just the charger manufacturer, right? So there's got to be, I assume, you're talking to utilities and, like you said, engineering firms, electricians, but you guys are, it sounds like, well connected with all of that in the ecosystem. But I guess where I'm going is, like, this isn't probably a decision that happens like a snap decision, right? There needs to be some planning to go into it and some long term or some kind of longer term foresight. What's the starting position, or what are maybe the steps that people have to think about when they're considering charging on a commercial property?
I would generally recommend finding someone who can help from a consultation standpoint. Like I just think that it is too there's just too much to learn to make quick decisions on your own. So we always advocate finding the right partner and also finding a partner who has an array of solutions. There's a lot of people out there, especially like more legacy players in the charging space, who have a single solution. And if you reach out to them, they'll be like, "Yep, our thing fits for that. Here you go. We can do this thing for you." And a lot of the times, there's gaps with between that and what the actual application is. And there can be a lot of like cost and complexity that comes out of that when you start looking at, well, we have to upgrade electrical infrastructure and that kind of things. So we're always big advocates of finding the right partners. Obviously, like Aurora is a good example of that, right? Like someone who can help work with people and help them understand what the requirements are. So I think that's the starting point, right? Is saying who do we know, who do we trust, who's in the space, whether that's an EPC or a electrical contractor or an EV specific consultant who can help guide us through the process.
Right. Okay, perfect. And just yeah, touching on that too is we've received a lot of support as Aurora, and some funding support for this as well. So I'll just mention a couple. And unfortunately, I don't have a slide. I should have prepared a slide for it, but we've received funding from EcoWest, which is based out of Winnipeg, and they oversee some of the funding that came from the federal government. So that's how we were able to get some of these chargers paid for and installed into the remote communities where the business case can be challenging at first because there's very low utilization to begin with as people are just starting to get into EV adoption. The other funding that we are looking to recommend is from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities under the Green Municipal Fund. For municipalities, they can get funding for feasibility studies for municipal fleet electrification. So I would recommend businesses and communities taking a look into that and reach out to us if they want more information on that. And that, again, helps get some of that education that is required and that consultation paid for. So that can be 50% for municipalities, 80% or more for First Nations. So and Indigenous businesses. So please check into that as well. So as always, this session always goes by really quick. And so we've come to the end of time for today. So thanks very much again, guys, for joining. I just want to talk a little bit about what we've got for our next webinar coming up, and we're going to build a little bit upon this one. So our next webinar is scheduled for Wednesday, July 22nd at noon Saskatchewan time or Central Time. And we're going to be talking about the development of a national grid to allow the freedom of electrified travel across the nation, including remote locations like Saskatchewan's north. So I'm going to be joined by Travis Allen, who's the president and CEO of the Canadian Charging Infrastructure Council, as well as Scott Scharboura, president and founder of Scharboura EV Infrastructure Advisors. So you won't want to miss that one. Two guys that are a lot of experience in this space. And yeah, we'll learn a little bit about how we can, again, fill in the gaps throughout the country to make sure that charging is available where it needs to be to allow freedom of electrified transport throughout the country. And that is it. You can register for that one on the website. And I believe, yeah, it's dropped here in the chat as well. But feel free to check out our website as well for registration at aurorarenewables.ca/EV-campaign. And that's all the time we have. Thanks so much, Micah and Grant, for joining. That was excellent. Appreciate your time. And yeah, anyone who is interested, please reach out to these guys if you've got any more questions.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks a lot, Mitch.
Great. And thanks everyone for joining. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.